Maya Rodriguez stepped through the heavy glass doors of Westfield High School on a cold Monday morning in October. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as students hurried past her, their voices echoing off the polished floors. She clutched her schedule tightly, scanning the numbers on classroom doors while trying to ignore the curious stares that followed her down the hallway. At 17, Maya had learned to blend into new environments quickly. This was her fourth school in 3 years, thanks to her father's military assignments. Each move brought the same challenges: new faces, new social hierarchies, and the inevitable period of adjustment, where she had to prove herself all over again. But Westfield High felt different somehow. There was an underlying tension in the air that she couldn't quite identify. Her first period was advanced chemistry with Mrs. Patterson. Maya slipped into the classroom just as the bell rang, taking an empty seat near the back. The teacher, a woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled into a tight bun, barely acknowledged her presence before diving into a lecture about molecular structures. "We have a new student joining us today," Mrs. Patterson announced without looking up from her notes. "Maya Rodriguez. I trust you'll all make her feel welcome." A few heads turned in Maya's direction, but most students seemed more interested in their phones than the new arrival. Maya was fine with that. She preferred to observe before making any attempts at socializing. Years of moving had taught her that rushing into friendships often led to disappointment. During lunch, Maya found herself sitting alone at a table near the windows overlooking the school's courtyard. She pulled out a turkey sandwich her mother had packed and opened her chemistry textbook, using the time to catch up on material she might have missed at her previous school. The cafeteria was loud and chaotic, filled with the typical high school drama she had witnessed countless times before. That's when she first noticed them. 3 girls sat at a large table in the center of the cafeteria, commanding attention from everyone around them. The leader was a blonde named Jessica Morrison, whose father apparently owned several car dealerships in town. She wore designer clothes and carried herself with the confidence that came from never having to worry about money or social status. To her right sat Brittany Chen, a petite girl with perfect makeup, who seemed to hang on Jessica's every word. The third member of their group was Amanda Walsh, a tall brunette who looked like she could have been a model if she weren't busy being Jessica's enforcer. Maya watched as other students approached their table, some seeking approval and others simply wanting to be noticed. Jessica held court like a queen, deciding with subtle gestures and expressions who was worthy of her attention and who should be dismissed. It was a dynamic Maya had seen in every school she'd attended, but something about Jessica's particular brand of cruelty set her apart from typical high school mean girls. The first incident happened during 5th period English class. Maya had answered a question about symbolism in The Great Gatsby that the teacher, Mr. Williams, had posed to the class. Her answer was thoughtful and detailed, drawing on themes she had studied at her previous school. Mr. Williams praised her insight, mentioning that it was refreshing to have a student who could think critically about literature. Jessica, who sat 2 rows over, turned to look at Maya with undisguised annoyance. She had clearly expected to be the one providing impressive answers, as she likely had been for the past 3 years. Maya noticed the look but didn't think much of it. She was used to academic competition and had learned not to tone down her intelligence to make others comfortable. After class, as Maya was gathering her books, Jessica approached her desk with Brittany and Amanda flanking her like bodyguards. "So you're the new girl everyone's talking about," Jessica said, her voice carrying a false sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "Maya, right?" "That's right," Maya replied, continuing to pack her bag without looking up. "I'm Jessica Morrison. My family basically built this town, so I like to personally welcome all the new students." She paused, studying Maya's clothes and backpack with obvious judgment. "Where did you move from?" "San Diego," Maya answered simply. "Military brat?" Amanda chimed in, the term carrying a slight edge of disdain. Maya finally looked up, meeting Amanda's gaze directly. "My father serves our country, yes." Jessica smiled, but there was nothing warm about it. "Well, I'm sure you'll find that things work a little differently here than wherever you came from. We have our own way of doing things at Westfield. I'm sure I'll figure it out," Maya said, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. "I'm sure you will," Jessica replied. "Just remember that some of us have been here our whole lives. We know everyone. and everyone knows us. It's important to understand the social ecosystem before you try to make waves. Maya understood the warning perfectly. Stay in your lane, don't outshine the established hierarchy, and maybe you'll be left alone. It was the same message she'd received from popular girls at other schools, though Jessica delivered it with more sophistication than most. "Thanks for the advice," Maya said neutrally, then walked past them toward the door. She could feel their eyes on her back as she left, and she heard Brittany whisper something that made the other two giggle. Maya had dealt with girls like this before, and she knew that backing down at the first sign of confrontation would only make things worse. But she also wasn't looking for trouble. She just wanted to finish her senior year, graduate, and move on to college, where this petty high school drama would finally be behind her. The rest of the week passed without major incident. Maya attended her classes, ate lunch alone while reading, and tried to stay under the radar. She noticed Jessica's group watching her sometimes, whispering among themselves, but they didn't approach her again. Maya hoped that maybe they had decided she wasn't worth their attention after all. She was wrong. The first real escalation came the following Monday during PE class. Maya had changed into her gym clothes and was stretching on the gymnasium floor when Coach Martinez announced that they would be playing volleyball. Teams were chosen by captains, and unsurprisingly, Jessica was selected as one of them. When it came time to pick players, Jessica chose her usual friends and allies, while Maya found herself on the opposing team led by a quiet girl named Sarah Kim. It was immediately clear that this wouldn't be a casual game. Jessica treated every point like it was the championship match of the Olympics, spiking the ball with unnecessary force and celebrating every score her team made. Maya had played volleyball at her previous school and was actually quite good at it. Her father had always encouraged her to stay in peak physical condition, and years of moving had taught her to adapt quickly to new sports and activities. She positioned herself strategically on the court, reading Jessica's playing style and anticipating her moves. The turning point came when Jessica attempted one of her signature aggressive spikes. Maya was positioned perfectly at the net and managed to block the attack, sending the ball back to Jessica's side for a point. The gymnasium fell unusually quiet for a moment, before Sarah's team erupted in cheers. Jessica's face flushed red as she stared at Maya across the net. She had clearly expected to dominate the new girl easily, and being shown up in front of the entire PE class was not something she was prepared to handle gracefully. "Lucky shot," Jessica called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maya didn't respond, simply getting back into position for the next play. But she could see the wheels turning in Jessica's head, and she knew that this small victory would come with consequences. After PE, Maya was changing back into her regular clothes when she realized that her chemistry textbook was missing from her locker. She searched through her bag and checked the floor around her locker, but it was nowhere to be found. The book was expensive, and she would need it for homework that evening. As she was closing her locker door, Brittany walked past with a smirk on her face. "Lose something?" she asked innocently. Maya studied her expression and immediately understood what had happened. "Where is it?" "Where's what?" Brittany replied, still smirking. "You know what? I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you should be more careful with your things. This school has a real problem with theft." Maya felt her jaw tighten, but she forced herself to remain calm. Losing her temper would only give them more ammunition to use against her. She had dealt with bullies before, and she knew that reacting emotionally was exactly what they wanted. "I'll find it," Maya said simply. "I'm sure you will," Brittany replied, then walked away, still smirking. Maya spent the next hour searching for her textbook. She checked every classroom she had been in that day, asked teachers if anyone had turned in a lost book, and even looked through the lost and found. Finally, she found it in the dumpster behind the cafeteria, covered in what looked like chocolate milk and pieces of someone's leftover lunch. As she cleaned off the book as best she could with paper towels from the bathroom, Maya felt something shift inside her. Up until now, she had been willing to tolerate Jessica's petty power games and social maneuvering. Every school had girls like her, and Maya had learned that the best strategy was usually to ignore them until they moved on to easier targets. But destroying her textbook crossed a line. That book represented her education, her future, her ability to succeed in class. Maya's family didn't have money to waste replacing expensive textbooks, because some spoiled rich girl wanted to prove a point about the social pecking order. Maya had been trained by her father since she was young in various forms of self-defense and combat techniques. He had served multiple tours overseas and had seen what happened to people who couldn't protect themselves. He had made sure that his daughter would never be helpless no matter what situation she found herself in. But those skills weren't meant for petty high school drama. They were serious techniques for serious threats, and Maya had never even considered using them in a social context. Violence was always supposed to be a last resort, used only when someone's safety was genuinely at risk. Still, as she looked at her ruined textbook, Maya found herself remembering some of the lessons her father had taught her about psychological warfare and strategic thinking. Sometimes the most effective way to deal with bullies wasn't through direct confrontation, but through demonstrating that you weren't an easy target. She decided to take a different approach. The next morning, Maya arrived at school early and went straight to the main office. She asked to speak with the principal, Dr. Elizabeth Thompson, about an incident of vandalism and theft. When Dr. Testai Thompson was available, Maya calmly explained what had happened to her textbook, providing a detailed timeline of events and mentioning that she had witnesses who could confirm that certain students had been asking about her lost book. Dr. Thompson listened carefully, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. She seemed genuinely concerned about the incident and assured Maya that the school took property destruction seriously. "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" Dr. Thompson asked. Maya chose her words carefully. "I don't want to accuse anyone without proof, but I did notice that some students seemed to know about my missing book before I had told anyone it was gone." Dr. Thompson nodded. "We'll look into this. In the meantime, please let me know if you experience any other problems. Westfield High has a zero-tolerance policy for bullying and harassment." Maya thanked her and left the office, knowing that she had just fired the first shot in what would likely become a prolonged conflict. Jessica and her friends wouldn't appreciate having the administration's attention drawn to their activities, but Maya was tired of being pushed around. She also knew that Jessica would retaliate, probably sooner rather than later. Girls like her didn't back down when challenged. They escalated. Maya was prepared for that. In fact, she was counting on it. What Jessica didn't know was that Maya had been preparing for confrontations like this her entire life. Not the petty social drama part, but the strategic thinking, the ability to stay calm under pressure, the skills to defend herself when words were no longer enough. Maya's father had often told her that the best warriors were the ones who never had to fight because their enemies were smart enough to recognize that attacking them would be a mistake. But he had also taught her that when conflict was inevitable, it was better to choose the time and place of the battle rather than letting your opponent dictate the terms. As Maya walked to her first period class, she found herself mentally preparing for whatever Jessica might throw at her next. She had tried to avoid this conflict, but Jessica seemed determined to make her life miserable. Maya had been patient and diplomatic, but her patience was running out. The training her father had given her wasn't just about physical techniques. It was about mental toughness, strategic thinking, and the ability to stay focused under pressure. These were skills that could be applied to any situation, not just combat scenarios. Maya settled into her chemistry class and opened her slightly damaged textbook. Mrs. Patterson was writing molecular formulas on the board, but Maya found herself thinking about different kinds of chemistry entirely, the kind that happened when unstoppable forces met immovable objects. She had a feeling that Jessica Morrison was about to learn something new about the quiet girl who had transferred from San Diego, something that would surprise everyone, including herself. Jessica Morrison was not used to being challenged, and Maya's visit to the principal's office had definitely qualified as a challenge. By third period, word had spread through the school's gossip network that the new girl had gone to Dr. Thompson about her vandalized textbook. Jessica's reputation as someone who could make problems disappear through her family's influence was suddenly being questioned. During lunch that Tuesday, Jessica held court at her usual table, but her demeanor was different. Where she normally radiated confidence and control, there was now an edge of frustration in her voice as she spoke to her followers. "I can't believe she actually ran to the principal like a little kid," Jessica said, stabbing at her salad with more force than necessary. "Who does that? We're seniors, not middle schoolers." Brittany nodded enthusiastically. "It's so pathetic." She couldn't handle a little joke, so she had to go crying to Mommy. Amanda leaned forward, lowering her voice. My mom works in the district office. She heard that Thompson is actually taking this seriously. Apparently, they're going to review security footage from the hallways. Jessica's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Westfield High had installed security cameras the previous year after a series of thefts from student lockers. If the administration was motivated enough to check the footage, they might actually find evidence of what had happened to Maya's textbook. That's ridiculous, Jessica said. But Maya could see the uncertainty in her eyes from across the cafeteria. They're not going to waste time investigating some stupid book. But Maya knew better. Thompson had seemed genuinely concerned during their meeting, and she had mentioned that the school district was under pressure from parents to address bullying more aggressively. Maya's complaint had come at exactly the right time to receive serious attention. Maya continued eating her lunch and reading her history textbook, acting as if she was completely oblivious to the drama playing out at Jessica's table. But she was actually listening carefully to every word, using skills her father had taught her about gathering intelligence and reading enemy intentions. The next escalation came during fourth period study hall. Maya was working on calculus problems when Tyler Morrison, Jessica's older brother, approached her table. Tyler was a college freshman who still hung around the high school, trading on his family name and his sister's social status to maintain relevance among the current students. You're the new girl causing problems for my sister, he said, loud enough for other students in the study hall to hear. Maya looked up from her calculator. Tyler was tall and athletic, clearly someone who was used to intimidating people through physical presence. He stood too close to her desk, using his size to try to make her feel uncomfortable. I'm not causing problems for anyone, Maya replied calmly. I'm just trying to do my homework. See, that's where you're wrong, Tyler said, placing his hands on her desk and leaning down toward her. My family has been part of this community for generations. We don't appreciate outsiders coming in and stirring up trouble. Maya recognized the tactic immediately. Tyler was trying to establish dominance through physical intimidation, counting on her to back down rather than create a scene. It was a strategy that probably worked well on most teenage girls. But Maya wasn't most teenage girls. She stood up slowly, her movement controlled and deliberate. Maya was about 5'6", significantly shorter than Tyler, but something in the way she carried herself made him take an involuntary step backward. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Maya said, her voice remaining perfectly level. I haven't stirred up any trouble. Someone vandalized my property, and I reported it to the appropriate authorities. That's called being a responsible citizen. Tyler's face reddened at being challenged so directly. Is there a problem here? The voice belonged to Mr. Person, Rodriguez, the study hall monitor, who had noticed the confrontation and was walking over to investigate. Tyler immediately straightened up and put on his most charming smile. No problem at all, Mr. Rodriguez. I was just welcoming the new student to Westfield. Rodriguez looked between Tyler and Maya, clearly sensing that something more significant had been happening. Tyler, I believe you graduated last year. What are you doing in study hall? Just visiting some old teachers, Tyler replied smoothly. I should probably get going, actually. He shot Maya one more threatening look before walking away, but she noticed that his swagger seemed less confident than when he had approached her. Maya sat back down and returned to her calculus problems. But she was acutely aware that she had just made another enemy. Word of Tyler's confrontation with Maya spread quickly through the school, reaching Jessica within minutes. Maya could see her across the study hall, furiously texting on her phone while shooting daggers in Maya's direction. The fact that Maya had stood up to Tyler, someone who had successfully bullied younger students for years, was clearly not sitting well with Jessica's plans. After school that day, Maya was walking to her mother's car in the pickup line when she felt someone grab her backpack strap and yank her backward. She stumbled but managed to maintain her balance, spinning around to face her attacker. It was Amanda Walsh, flanked by two other girls Maya didn't recognize. They had clearly been waiting for her in the parking lot, positioning themselves between Maya and the safety of the pickup line. You think you're so smart? Amanda said, still holding on to Maya's backpack. Going to the principal, standing up to Tyler, but you're just making things worse for yourself. Maya assessed the situation quickly, 3 against 1, in a relatively isolated area of the parking lot. where teachers might not immediately notice a confrontation. Amanda was bigger and stronger than Maya, and the other two girls looked like they were prepared to jump in if needed. "Let go of my bag," Maya said quietly. Amanda laughed and yanked the backpack again. Harder this time. "Or what? You'll run to Mommy Thompson again?" Maya felt something shift inside her, the same cold clarity that her father had taught her to cultivate in dangerous situations. Time seemed to slow down as she evaluated her options and planned her response. "I'm going to ask you one more time," Maya said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Let go of my bag." Something in Maya's tone must have penetrated Amanda's confidence, because for just a moment, uncertainty flickered across her face. But she was committed now, with an audience watching, and backing down would be a humiliation she couldn't afford. "Make me," Amanda challenged, giving the backpack another sharp tug. Maya's response was swift and precise. She grabbed Amanda's wrist with her left hand, applying pressure to a specific nerve point her father had shown her, while simultaneously stepping forward and slightly to the side. The combination of pain and leverage forced Amanda to release her grip on the backpack immediately. Before Amanda could react, Maya had pivoted behind her and applied what martial artists call a compliance hold. Painful enough to control someone's movement, but not severe enough to cause lasting damage. Amanda found herself bent forward at an awkward angle, completely unable to move without increasing her discomfort. "What the?" one of the other girls started to say, but Maya cut her off with a look that made her take several steps backward. "We're going to walk over to that teacher now," Maya said calmly, indicating a faculty member who was supervising the pickup line about 50 feet away, "and we're going to explain to her exactly what just happened here." "Get off me," Amanda hissed, but any attempt to struggle only made the hold more painful. "When you calm down and agree to walk calmly to the teacher, I'll let you go," Maya replied. "Until then, we stay exactly like this." The entire confrontation had lasted less than 30 seconds, but Maya could see that word was already spreading among the students in the parking lot. Cell phones were appearing, and she knew that within minutes, everyone at Westfield High would know that the quiet new girl had just taken down Amanda Walsh without breaking a sweat. Amanda finally agreed to walk to the teacher, and Maya released the hold. As they approached the faculty member, Mrs. Zaman and Turin, Chen from the English department, Maya could see Amanda rubbing her wrist and shooting her looks of pure hatred. "What's going on here, girls?" Mrs. Chen asked, clearly sensing that something significant had happened. "This girl attacked me," Amanda blurted out immediately. Maya remained calm. "Amanda grabbed my backpack and wouldn't let go. So?" "I defended myself using minimal force necessary to resolve the situation safely." Chen looked between them, trying to piece together what had actually occurred. "Amanda, is that true? Did you grab her backpack?" Amanda's face reddened. "It was just a joke." She totally overreacted. Grabbing someone's personal property and refusing to let go when asked isn't a joke. Mrs. Chen said firmly, "That's assault." "Maya, are you injured?" "No, ma'am, I'm fine." "Amanda, you need to come with me to the office right now. This kind of behavior is completely unacceptable." As Mrs. Chen led Amanda away, the other two girls who had been with her quickly disappeared into the crowd of students. Maya shouldered her backpack and walked calmly to her mother's car, aware that dozens of eyes were following her movement. Her mother, Maria Rodriguez, was a petite woman with kind eyes who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She immediately noticed Maya's tense expression as she got into the car. "Everything okay, Mija?" Maya considered how much to tell her mother about what had been happening at school. Maria already worried enough about the family's frequent moves and their effect on Maya's social development. Adding bullying to the list of concerns would only increase her stress. "Just some drama with other students," Maya said carefully. "Nothing I can't handle." Maria studied her daughter's face in the rearview mirror. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? If someone's giving you trouble, I know, Mom. Really, it's fine. Just typical high school stuff." But Maya knew it wasn't fine, and it was far from over. By standing up to Amanda so decisively, she had escalated the conflict to a new level. Jessica and her friends would view what had happened as an act of war, and they would respond accordingly. That evening, Maya's phone began buzzing with notifications from social media accounts she didn't even know existed. Someone had recorded at least part of the parking lot confrontation, and the video was spreading rapidly through the school's social networks. Most of the comments were supportive, praising Maya for standing up to Amanda and expressing amazement at how quickly and efficiently she had handled the situation. But there were also darker messages, clearly from Jessica's allies, calling Maya everything from a psycho to a violent freak. Maya's father, Sergeant First Class Roberto Rodriguez, was working late at the base, but Maya decided to call him anyway. She needed advice from someone who understood both conflict and strategy.
"Dad, it's me. Maya, how's the new school treating you?" Maya took a deep breath.
"I need to ask you something about dealing with hostile situations." Roberto's voice immediately became more serious. "What kind of hostile situations?" Maya explained the escalating conflict with Jessica and her friends, culminating in that afternoon's parking lot incident. She was careful to include all the relevant details while keeping her descriptions factual and unemotional. Roberto listened without interrupting, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When Maya finished, there was a long pause before he responded. "First of all, you handled that situation perfectly today. You tried diplomatic solutions first, you used minimal necessary force when threatened, and you involved proper authorities. I'm proud of you. But you need to understand that you've crossed a threshold now. These kids have seen that you're not someone they can push around, which means they're going to either back off completely or escalate significantly. My guess, based on what you've told me about this Jessica girl, is that they're going to escalate." Maya had been thinking the same thing. "So what do I do?" "You continue to take the high road as long as possible. Document everything. Involve school authorities when appropriate, and avoid situations where you might be isolated or outnumbered. But Maya, yeah? If they push you into a corner where you have no other choice, you have my permission to use everything I've taught you. Your safety is more important than avoiding conflict." Maya felt a mixture of relief and apprehension at her father's words. She had hoped he would tell her to just ignore the bullying and wait for it to pass. Instead, he was essentially giving her clearance to defend herself using skills that most high school students couldn't even imagine. "I hope it doesn't come to that, Dad." "So do I. But if it does, remember that the goal is always to end the threat as quickly and safely as possible. Don't play around, don't try to be fair, and don't give them opportunities to hurt you just to prove a point." That night, Maya lay in bed thinking about her father's words and the events of the day. She had managed to avoid serious conflicts at her previous schools through a combination of staying under the radar and moving away before tensions could escalate too far. But Westfield High was different. This was her senior year, and her family would be staying here until she graduated. For the first time since elementary school, Maya was going to have to see a conflict through to its conclusion, rather than escaping through another military reassignment. The thought was both terrifying and strangely liberating. As she drifted off to sleep, Maya found herself mentally reviewing the defensive techniques her father had taught her over the years. She hoped she would never need to use them, but if Jessica Morrison and her friends continued their campaign of harassment, they might soon discover that the quiet girl from San Diego was hiding depths they couldn't even imagine. The next morning would bring new challenges, and Maya suspected that her conflict with Jessica was about to enter a much more dangerous phase. The video of Maya's confrontation with Amanda had gone viral within the school's social network overnight. By the time Maya arrived at Westfield High the next morning, students were staring at her with a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and fear. She could hear whispered conversations stopping abruptly as she passed, and she noticed that people were giving her significantly more space in the hallways than they had before. Maya's first indication that the situation had escalated came during second-period biology, when Principal Thompson's voice crackled over the intercom, asking her to report to the main office. Maya gathered her books, ignoring the dramatic "ooh" sounds from her classmates, and walked calmly to the administration wing. Thompson was waiting for her, along with Amanda Walsh and her parents. Amanda's father was a tall man in an expensive suit who looked like he was used to getting his way through intimidation and financial pressure. Her mother appeared equally affluent but more concerned with her daughter's welfare than with making demands. "Maya, please sit down," Dr. Thompson said, gesturing to an empty chair. "The Walshes have some concerns about yesterday's incident in the parking lot." Amanda's father leaned forward aggressively. This girl attacked my daughter completely unprovoked. We have witnesses, and we have video evidence. We're demanding that she be expelled immediately." Maya remained calm, remembering her father's advice about staying composed under pressure. "Dr. Thompson, I'd like to clarify what actually happened before we discuss any consequences." "That's exactly what we're here to do," Dr. Thompson replied. "Mr. Walsh, I've reviewed the security footage from our parking lot cameras, and I'd like to share what I observed." Maya felt a surge of relief. She had hoped the school's cameras had captured the incident, but she hadn't been certain of their positioning or quality. Thompson turned her computer monitor so everyone could see it, then began playing the security footage. The video quality wasn't perfect, but it clearly showed Amanda grabbing Maya's backpack, Maya asking her to stop, Amanda refusing and pulling harder, and then Maya's swift response to end the confrontation. "As you can see," Dr. Thompson continued, "Maya attempted to resolve the situation verbally first. Only when that failed, and when Amanda continued to physically restrain her, did Maya defend herself. And I might add that her response was remarkably controlled and proportionate." Amanda's father's face reddened as he watched his daughter clearly initiating the physical confrontation. "That doesn't matter. The level of force this girl used was completely excessive. Amanda could have been seriously injured." "Mr. Walsh," Dr. Kusazi, Thompson said firmly, "your daughter committed assault by grabbing Maya's property and refusing to release it when asked. Maya defended herself using what appears to be professional-level defensive techniques that were carefully controlled to avoid causing actual injury. If anyone should be facing disciplinary action, it's Amanda." Amanda's mother finally spoke up. "It's not normal for a teenager to have those kinds of skills." Maya realized this was her opportunity to provide context without revealing the full extent of her training. "My father is military. He's taught me basic self-defense since I was young. He says it's important for women to be able to protect themselves." Dr. Thompson nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of responsible parenting we like to see. Maya, you handled yourself admirably in a difficult situation." The meeting continued for another 20 minutes, with Amanda's father becoming increasingly frustrated as it became clear that Maya would not be facing any punishment. Eventually, Dr. Thompson dismissed Maya back to class while keeping the Walsh family behind, for what she called a discussion about Amanda's behavior and future disciplinary measures. Maya knew that Amanda would face consequences for her actions, but she also knew that this would only increase Jessica's determination to retaliate. Girls like Jessica didn't back down when their friends got in trouble. They doubled down and looked for more creative ways to cause damage. Maya's prediction proved accurate sooner than expected. During lunch, she noticed that Jessica's table was fuller than usual, populated with students who normally wouldn't associate with her core group. Jessica was clearly rallying allies for whatever she was planning next. Maya was finishing her sandwich when Tyler Morrison appeared at her table again. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had brought 3 other college-age guys with him, all of whom looked like they spent considerable time in the gym and considerable money on their clothes. "We need to talk," Tyler announced, sitting down across from Maya without being invited. Maya assessed the situation quickly. 4 college guys surrounding her table in a crowded cafeteria wasn't immediately dangerous, but it was definitely meant to be intimidating. She could see students at nearby tables watching nervously, and she noticed that Jessica was recording the encounter on her phone from across the room. "I'm listening," Maya said calmly, not showing any sign of concern about being outnumbered. "You embarrassed my sister yesterday," Tyler continued, "and you made our family look bad. That's not something we're going to tolerate." One of Tyler's friends, a muscular guy with a buzz cut, leaned forward. "We heard you think you're some kind of tough guy because you know a few karate moves." Maya recognized the strategy immediately. They were trying to provoke her into a reaction that would either make her look weak or get her in trouble with school authorities. If she backed down, Jessica would have ammunition to use against her. If she escalated, they would claim she was violent and unstable. "I don't think I'm tough," Maya replied evenly. "I just think people should be able to eat lunch without being harassed." Tyler's face darkened. "You think this is harassment? You have no idea what harassment looks like." "Actually, I do," Maya said, her voice dropping slightly. This is for adults attempting to intimidate a minor in a public place. It's textbook harassment, and it's also technically criminal behavior. The buzz-cut guy started to stand up, his hands clenching into fists. You little gentleman. The voice belonged to Coach Martinez, the PE teacher, who had approached their table without Maya noticing. Is there a problem here? Tyler immediately put on his charming smile. No problem, Coach. Just catching up with an old friend. Coach Martinez looked skeptical. Tyler, you graduated. You're not supposed to be on school grounds during school hours without permission from the office. We were just leaving, Tyler said, standing up and gesturing for his friends to follow. Before walking away, he leaned down close to Maya's ear and whispered, "This isn't over. Not even close." Maya didn't respond, but she made note of the specific threat. Her father had taught her to document everything when dealing with hostile actors, because you never knew when that information might become important. After Tyler and his friends left, Coach Martinez sat down where Tyler had been. Maya, right? You're the new student everyone's talking about. Yes, sir. I heard about what happened in the parking lot yesterday. Word of advice, be very careful around the Morrison family. They have a lot of influence in this town, and they're not used to people standing up to them. Maya appreciated the warning, but she was beginning to understand that being careful might not be enough. Jessica and Tyler weren't going to back down just because their previous attempts had failed. If anything, they seemed to be escalating their efforts. That afternoon, Maya found a note taped to her locker that made her blood run cold. It was written in block letters to disguise the handwriting, and it contained detailed information about her family's schedule, including what time her mother left for work, what route she took to drive Maya to school, and where her father was currently deployed. The note ended with a simple message: "Back off or we'll make sure your family pays for your attitude." Maya stared at the note for a long moment, feeling something fundamental shift inside her. Up until now, this had been a typical high school conflict about social hierarchies and wounded egos. But threatening her family crossed a line that changed everything. Maya's father had taught her that there were different levels of response, appropriate for different levels of threat. Schoolyard bullying called for diplomatic solutions and minimal defensive force. Threats against family members called for something else entirely. Maya carefully folded the note and put it in her backpack. She would show it to Doc Thompson, but she knew that school authorities would have limited ability to address threats that extended beyond school property. This was becoming a situation that required different kinds of expertise. That evening, Maya called her father again and read him the note word for word. Roberto's reaction was immediate and intense. "Maya, I want you to forward that note to me right now, and I want you to be extra careful about your surroundings at all times. This has moved beyond normal teenage conflict." "I know, Dad. What should I do?" "First, you're going to document everything and involve law enforcement. Threatening military families is taken very seriously by both local police and military authorities. Second, you're going to avoid being alone anywhere until this is resolved." Roberto paused, and Maya could hear him thinking. "Third, you're going to prepare yourself for the possibility that these kids might be stupid enough to actually try something. If they do, I want you to remember everything I've taught you about threat assessment and response." "Dad, I'm scared," Maya admitted for the first time since the conflict began. "Good. Fear keeps you alert and alive. But Maya, you're stronger and better trained than you realize. If these spoiled kids want to escalate this to the point where you have no choice but to defend yourself, they're going to learn some very hard lessons." The next morning, Maya arrived at school to find that someone had spray-painted "freak" across her locker in red letters. Several students were taking pictures with their phones, and Maya could see Jessica watching from down the hallway with obvious satisfaction. Maya walked to her locker as if nothing unusual had happened, opened it calmly, and gathered her books for first period. She was acutely aware that this was a test of her composure, and she wasn't going to give Jessica the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. But inside, Maya was calculating. The vandalism, combined with the threatening note, created a pattern of escalating harassment that law enforcement would take seriously. Jessica was making mistakes now, getting sloppy because her previous tactics hadn't worked. Maya's first stop was the main office, where she showed Dr. Thompson both the threatening note and the vandalized locker. Dr. Thompson's reaction was swift and decisive. "Maya, This has gone far beyond normal student conflict. I'm calling the police immediately, and I'm also notifying the district's security department. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I appreciate you taking this seriously. Anyone who threatens a student's family crosses a line that we absolutely will not tolerate, and vandalizing school property is a criminal act. Within an hour, 2 police officers were interviewing Maya about the escalating harassment campaign. Officer Sarah Chen, a woman in her 30s who specialized in school-related incidents, seemed particularly interested in the note containing detailed information about Maya's family. Do you have any idea how someone would have obtained this information about your family's schedule? Officer Chen asked. Maya had been thinking about that question since she first read the note. The only way someone could know my mom's work schedule and my dad's deployment information would be if they had access to military personnel records or if they were conducting surveillance. Officer Chan exchanged a look with her partner. Both of those possibilities involve serious criminal activity. We're going to need to expand this investigation. By lunchtime, news had spread throughout the school that police were investigating the threats against Maya. Jessica's confident demeanor had been replaced by obvious anxiety, and several students reported seeing her making urgent phone calls during class breaks. Maya ate her lunch alone as usual, but she noticed that the social dynamics around her were shifting. Students who had previously avoided her out of fear of crossing Jessica were now approaching to offer support and information about the harassment campaign. Sarah Kim, the quiet girl who had been on Maya's volleyball team during that first PE class, sat down across from her. Maya, I wanted you to know that a bunch of us have been keeping track of what Jessica and her friends have been doing to you. If you need witnesses for anything, we've got your back. Maya was touched by the unexpected support. Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. We're all kind of tired of being afraid of her, you know? Watching you stand up to her has been inspiring. Maya realized that her conflict with Jessica had become about more than just her own situation. It had become symbolic of something larger about power dynamics and bullying at Westfield High. That afternoon, as Maya was walking to her mother's car, she noticed a black SUV following them from the school parking lot. Maya's father had taught her basic counter-surveillance techniques, and she quickly confirmed that the vehicle was maintaining a consistent distance and making the same turns they were making. Mom, I need you to take a different route home today, Maya said carefully. Why, Mija? I think someone might be following us. Maria's eyes immediately went to the rear-view mirror, and her face paled when she spotted the SUV. Should I call the police? Yes, but keep driving normally for now. Don't let them know we've spotted them. Maya guided her mother through a series of turns designed to confirm whether they were being followed. The SUV stayed with them through 4 consecutive direction changes, removing any doubt about their intentions. Maria called 911 while continuing to drive, and within minutes they had a police escort that caused the SUV to disappear down a side street. But Maya had gotten a clear look at the driver, and she recognized him as one of Tyler's friends from the cafeteria confrontation. The surveillance attempt was the final piece of evidence that convinced Maya that Jessica and Tyler had moved far beyond normal teenage bullying. They were now engaged in what could only be described as stalking and harassment, possibly with criminal intent. That evening, Maya had another conversation with her father that would prove to be pivotal. Dad, they followed us home today. Mom and I had to get a police escort. Roberto was quiet for a long moment. Maya, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want a completely honest answer. Do you believe that Jessica Morrison and her friends represent a genuine threat to you and your mother's safety? Maya considered the question carefully. The escalating pattern of behavior, the threats against her family, and now the surveillance, all pointed to people who were losing control of the situation and might be willing to take dangerous risks. Yes, Dad, I think they might actually try to hurt us. Then we're past the point where this can be handled through normal channels. Maya, I'm going to share something with you that I've never told you before. Maya felt her stomach clench with anticipation. Your old man isn't just regular Army, Mija. I'm Special Operations. Navy SEALs, to be specific. And everything I've taught you over the years wasn't just basic self-defense. It was professional-grade combat training, modified for civilian situations. Maya felt like the world had shifted beneath her feet. Suddenly, all of her father's lessons took on new meaning and context. Does Mom know? Your mother knows I do dangerous work, but she doesn't know the specifics. Maya, if these kids push you into a situation where you have no other choice, you have permission to use everything I've taught you. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. You only use those skills when someone's life is in danger. I understand, Dad. I hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does, remember that you're not just some random teenage girl they can push around. You're the daughter of a Navy SEAL, and you've been trained by the best. Trust your training, trust your instincts, and come home safe. As Maya hung up the phone, she realized that tomorrow would likely bring the final confrontation in her conflict with Jessica Morrison. And for the first time since this all began, she felt ready for whatever they might throw at her. The final confrontation came on Friday afternoon, exactly 2 weeks after Maya had first walked through the doors of Westfield High School. The police investigation had put Jessica and her friends on edge, and Maya could sense that they were planning something desperate. Girls like Jessica didn't handle losing control gracefully, and the attention from law enforcement was clearly pushing her toward a breaking point. Maya had taken her father's advice about avoiding isolation, so when the final bell rang, she waited in the main hallway near the administrative offices until the initial rush of students had cleared. She wanted to make sure there were still teachers and staff around when she made her way to the parking lot. But as Maya walked toward the exit, she realized that Jessica had anticipated this strategy. The hallway that led to the main parking lot had been blocked off with wet floor signs and maintenance equipment, forcing students to use the alternate exit that led through the less monitored side of the building. Maya paused at the blocked hallway, immediately recognizing this as a tactical setup. Her father had taught her that when enemies started manipulating your environment and limiting your options, it meant they were preparing to attack. Maya had 2 choices. She could return to the main office and ask for an escort, or she could proceed through the alternate route while being prepared for whatever was waiting. Maya chose to proceed, but she did so with all of her senses alert and her father's training fully activated. As she walked down the side hallway, she noticed that it was unusually empty. Normal foot traffic should have meant that other students were using this route, but the hallway was completely deserted except for her. The attack came as Maya rounded the corner leading to the side exit. Jessica, Tyler, and 5 other people were waiting for her in the small alcove near the emergency doors. Tyler's college friends were there, along with 2 girls Maya didn't recognize who looked older than high school age. Going somewhere? Jessica asked, stepping forward to block Maya's path to the exit. Maya quickly assessed her situation, 7 against 1 in a location where teachers were unlikely to patrol regularly. The emergency exit behind the group was equipped with an alarm, so using it would bring help eventually, but not immediately. The way she had come was now blocked by Tyler's 2 largest friends, eliminating her retreat option. "I'm trying to get to my ride," Maya said calmly, not showing any sign of fear despite being severely outnumbered. Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your ride is going to have to wait. We need to have a conversation about your attitude problem." Tyler stepped forward, cracking his knuckles in an obvious attempt at intimidation. "You've caused enough trouble for our family. Time for you to learn some respect." Maya's mind went into the analytical mode her father had trained her to access during dangerous situations. Time seemed to slow down as she evaluated threats, identified potential weapons, calculated distances, and planned response scenarios. Tyler was the biggest immediate threat due to his size and position. The 2 college friends flanking him were athletic but appeared overconfident and undisciplined. Jessica and the older girls were likely depending on the guys to do any actual fighting, which meant they would be the first to panic if things went badly for their side. "Before this goes any further," Maya said quietly, "I want everyone to understand that you're committing multiple felonies right now. Conspiracy, imprisonment, assault, you're all adults except for Jessica, which means you're all looking at serious jail time." One of Tyler's friends, the one with the buzz cut who had confronted her in the cafeteria, snorted dismissively. "Nobody's going to jail, little girl. You're going to learn to keep your mouth shut, and then we're all going to walk away." Maya recognized that negotiation was no longer possible. These people had convinced themselves that they could intimidate her into submission through violence, and they weren't going to back down until they discovered how wrong they were. "Jessica, Maya said, making eye contact with the girl who had started this entire conflict. You have one chance to walk away from this. After that, I can't be responsible for what happens next. Jessica's face twisted with rage. You think you can threaten me? My family owns this town. Nobody's going to. Maya never let her finish the sentence. Her father had taught her that when violence was inevitable, it was crucial to act first and with overwhelming force. Hesitation got people killed. Maya's first move was designed to even the odds quickly. She feinted toward Tyler, causing him to step forward defensively, then pivoted and launched a devastating kick at the knee of the buzz-cut friend who had been talking tough. The joint buckled with an audible pop, sending him to the ground screaming and immediately removing him from the fight. Before anyone else could react, Maya had rolled behind Tyler and applied what her father called a sleeper hold, a blood choke that cut off circulation to the brain without damaging the windpipe. Tyler struggled briefly but was unconscious within seconds, his much larger body collapsing to the floor. The speed and efficiency of Maya's attacks had stunned the remaining attackers. 2 of their biggest threats had been neutralized in less than 10 seconds, and the quiet girl they had planned to intimidate was moving with a fluidity and precision that spoke of serious professional training. The third college friend, a tall guy with expensive clothes and soft hands that suggested he was more accustomed to intimidating people than actually fighting them, took a swing at Maya that she avoided easily. Her counterattack was a precise strike to his solar plexus that left him gasping for air and unable to continue fighting. Maya had now disabled 3 adult males in under 30 seconds, leaving Jessica and the 2 older girls facing her alone. The hallway that had seemed like a perfect trap for Maya now felt more like a cage containing them with someone far more dangerous than they had anticipated. "This is impossible," one of the older girls whispered, backing away from Maya. "She's just a kid." Maya's expression remained calm and focused, showing no signs of stress or fatigue, despite having just fought 3 opponents. "I tried to warn you. I'm not just a kid." Jessica was staring at Maya with something approaching terror. The girl she had dismissed as an easy target had just displayed fighting skills that belonged in action movies, not high school hallways. "What are you?" Jessica whispered. "I'm the daughter of a Navy SEAL," Maya replied simply, "and you just made the biggest mistake of your life." The sound of running footsteps echoed from both ends of the hallway as teachers and security guards responded to reports of a disturbance. Maya immediately moved away from the injured attackers and raised her hands in a non-threatening position, knowing that the optics of the situation were about to become very important. Coach Martinez was the first adult to arrive on the scene, followed closely by Dr. Tupasi Sis, Thompson, and 2 security guards. They stopped short when they saw Tyler unconscious on the floor, his friend holding his damaged knee while moaning in pain, and the third guy still struggling to breathe normally. "What happened here?" Dr. Thompson demanded, looking between Maya and the injured students. Jessica immediately tried to control the narrative. "She attacked us. We were just talking to her and she went crazy." Maya remained calm, knowing that her father's training included dealing with the aftermath of defensive encounters. "Dr. Thompson, I was walking to the parking lot when these 7 people trapped me in this hallway and threatened me with violence. I defended myself using minimal necessary force." "Minimal?" One of the security guards stared at the 3 injured college students. "Lady, I've seen professional fighters who couldn't do this much damage this quickly." Dr. Thompson was already on her radio calling for emergency medical assistance and police backup. As she spoke, Maya could see her putting together the timeline of escalating harassment that had led to this confrontation. Officer Chen arrived within minutes, along with paramedics who began treating the injured students. As she surveyed the scene, Officer Chen's expression showed professional interest rather than surprise. "Maya, are you injured?" Officer Chen asked. "No, ma'am, I'm fine. Can you walk me through exactly what happened?" Maya provided a detailed account of the confrontation, explaining how she had been forced into the side hallway and then trapped by the group. She described each defensive action she had taken and why it had been necessary for her safety. As Maya spoke, Officer Chen took notes and occasionally asked clarifying questions. Maya could see that the officer was impressed by the precision and restraint she had shown, even in a 7-against-1 scenario. Tyler had regained consciousness by this point, though he seemed groggy and confused. The paramedics had determined that his friend's knee was severely damaged and would require surgery, while the third guy had suffered bruised ribs and difficulty breathing that would heal with time. Dr. Thompson pulled Officer Chen aside for a private conversation, during which Maya saw her showing the officer photos of the vandalized locker and copies of the threatening note. The pattern of escalating harassment leading up to this confrontation was becoming clear to everyone involved. "Jessica Morrison," Officer Chen said, approaching the group of girls who had been with Tyler. "You and your friends are under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, false imprisonment, and harassment." "You can't arrest us," Jessica protested. "We didn't do anything. She's the one who hurt everyone." "Ms. Morrison, you and 6 other people trapped a minor in an isolated area and threatened her with violence. The fact that she was able to defend herself doesn't change the criminal nature of your actions." As the police led Jessica away in handcuffs, she stared at Maya with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. The girl who was supposed to be easy prey had turned out to be something far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. Tyler and his friends were also arrested once they were medically stable, facing charges that included conspiracy, assault, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The investigation into their harassment campaign would eventually reveal the extent of their surveillance activities and threats, leading to additional federal charges related to stalking a military family. Maya's mother arrived at the school within the hour, having been called by Dr. Thompson. Maria Rodriguez looked shaken as she surveyed the scene, but she also seemed oddly proud of her daughter's handling of the situation.
"Are you okay, Mija?" Maria asked, hugging Maya tightly.
"I'm fine, Mom, really." Dr. Thompson approached them as the last of the injured students were being loaded into ambulances. "Rodriguez, I want you to know that Maya will not be facing any disciplinary action from the school. She was clearly defending herself against multiple attackers who had been harassing her for weeks." "Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I also want to apologize for not taking the escalating harassment more seriously. We should have done more to protect Maya before it reached this point." That evening, Maya finally had a phone conversation with her father that didn't involve discussing threats or defensive strategies. "I'm proud of you, Mija. You handled an impossible situation perfectly. You tried diplomacy first, you documented everything properly, you involved the authorities when appropriate, and when you had no choice but to defend yourself, you did it with precision and restraint." "I was scared, Dad. There were so many of them." "Fear is normal, but you didn't let fear paralyze you or make you panic. That's the mark of a true warrior." Maya thought about her father's words. "Do you think they'll leave me alone now?" Roberto chuckled. "Maya, after what you did today, I guarantee that nobody at Westfield High is going to mess with you again." Word spreads fast in high schools, and by Monday morning, everyone will know that the quiet new girl took down 7 attackers without breaking a sweat. He was right. When Maya returned to school the following Monday, the social dynamics had shifted completely. Students looked at her with a mixture of respect and awe, but more importantly, they looked at her without fear. The reign of terror that Jessica Morrison had maintained over Westfield High for years was finally over. Sarah Kim and several other students approached Maya during lunch, thanking her for standing up to the bullies who had made their lives miserable for so long. "You didn't just defend yourself," Sarah said. "You freed all of us." Maya realized that her conflict with Jessica had been about much more than just high school drama. It had been about standing up to people who used fear and intimidation to control others, and showing that bullies were only powerful as long as people were willing to be victims. 3 weeks later, Maya received a letter from her father that she would treasure for the rest of her life. "Maya, I've spent my career serving with the most elite warriors in the world, and I want you to know that what you did at Westfield High was as impressive as any combat action I've ever witnessed. You faced overwhelming odds with courage, you protected innocent people, and you did it all while maintaining your principles and your humanity. You are truly your father's daughter, and I couldn't be more proud. The world needs more people like you. People who refuse to let bullies win, no matter how scared they might be or how bad the odds might look. You've learned something that many adults never figure out. Sometimes the right thing to do is also the hard thing to do, but that's exactly when it matters most. Maya finished her senior year at Westfield High without any further incidents. Jessica Morrison was expelled and faced juvenile detention for her role in the harassment campaign, while Tyler and his friends served jail time for their adult criminal charges. More importantly, Maya had learned something fundamental about herself and her capabilities. She was stronger than she had ever imagined, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. The training her father had given her wasn't just about fighting techniques. It was about the confidence to stand up for what was right, even when the odds seemed impossible. When graduation day arrived, Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma with her head held high, knowing that she had not only survived Westfield High, but had left it a better place than she found it. The quiet girl from San Diego had proven that sometimes the most unassuming people are capable of extraordinary things when pushed to their limits. As Maya looked out at the crowd of graduating students and their families, she caught sight of Sarah Kim and several other students who were smiling and applauding enthusiastically. These were the students who no longer had to live in fear, the ones who had been inspired by Maya's example to stand up for themselves and others. Maya realized that her father had been preparing her for much more than just physical confrontations. He had been training her to be a protector, someone who could stand between bullies and their victims and say, "Enough." It was a responsibility that Maya was proud to carry, and one that would serve her well throughout her life. The girl who had walked into Westfield High School 2 months earlier had been looking for nothing more than to finish her senior year quietly and move on to college. The young woman who graduated was someone who understood that sometimes the most important battles are the ones fought not for glory or recognition, but simply because someone has to stand up and do what's right. Maya Rodriguez had found her strength, her purpose, and her voice. And Westfield High School would never be the same.